Whether you despise them or you're entirely enamored by them, sports dynasties are a spectacle. The Warriors from the mid-2010s to early 2020s, they were fun to watch. The Yankees from the late 90s to the early 2000s, complete and utter domination. But you know what intrigues me more than dynasties like those? Teams that are one and done, in the championship game, and then out of the playoffs for a continued stretch. The most recent example like this in baseball is the 2019 Nationals. They went on an unforgettable run through the postseason to win their first World Series since relocating to Washington. It looked like it could have been the start of continued success for the club. But it wasn't. Most of the players from that 2019 club are long gone, and the team hasn't made the playoffs since that championship 2019 season. What happened? Why did the Nationals collapse so suddenly after being on top of the baseball world? Is there any hope for them today? We'll take a look at how the key pieces of their World Series winning roster were obtained, and how that roster eventually dissipated and regressed to the point of falling out of playoff contention.
With the first selection in the 2009 first-year player draft, the Washington Nationals select Stephen Strasburg.
I really don't think it's a stretch to say that Stephen Strasburg was the most highly touted pitching prospect in Major League Baseball history. Strasburg pitched for 3 seasons at San Diego State University. In 2 of those 3 seasons, he was a starter. In those 2 seasons, he started a combined 28 games, tossed 206 1/3 innings, and posted an ERA of 1.44. He struck out 328 batters, good for a K/9 of 14.3, and only walked 35 batters. His strikeout to walk ratio was a ridiculous 9.37. After the Nationals finished the 2008 season with the worst record in Major Leagues, they, of course, drafted Strasburg with the first overall pick in the 2009 draft. Strasburg was drafted with one goal in mind: to be the savior of the franchise and usher in a new era of winning baseball in the capital. While Strasburg was set to become the new face of the franchise, he was far from the only rising star the Nationals had. In 2009, the Nationals once again finished with the worst record in the majors, so with the first overall pick of the 2010 draft, they selected maybe the most highly touted hitting prospect in Major League Baseball history, Bryce Harper. With the most exciting pitching prospect and the most exciting hitting prospect now in their organization, the future was looking bright in DC. Maybe not immediately, but it seemed that the ineptitude that plagued this team ever since they relocated to Washington would be coming to an end soon enough. Things weren't too much better in 2010, as the Nationals finished with the 6th worst record in the majors. However, this year marked the highly anticipated debut of Stephen Strasburg, symbolizing the positive outlook for the future of this franchise. Though, just like the Nationals season, Strasburg's ended in a sour, unforgiving way, as he suffered a torn UCL on August 21st, requiring Tommy John surgery. Not all was lost though, as with the 6th pick of the 2011 draft, the Nationals drafted a third baseman from Rice University, Anthony Rendon. Rendon was the recipient of the Dick Howser Trophy in 2010, an award given each year to the best college baseball player in America. I'll cut to the chase right now and say that all 3 of these players had phenomenal tenures with the Nationals. This is a graph of the amount of WAR accumulated by first-round picks from the 2009 to 2011 drafts. This only includes WAR accumulated by players for the team that drafted them. For example, Manny Machado was drafted by the Orioles in 2010. He is now a member of the Padres, and has accrued 23 WAR for them. This WAR he accrued while playing for the Padres is not represented on this chart. Only the WAR he amassed while playing for the Orioles is shown on this chart. The Nationals' first-round picks from 2009 to 2011 garnered 90.1 WAR, second to only the Angels' first-round picks, who stockpiled a towering 101.4 WAR total, mostly fueled by, well, you know who. The 2012 season marked the debut of young sensation Bryce Harper, and it also marked Stephen Strasburg's full return from Tommy John surgery that he underwent in 2010. With these two finally together on the Major League roster, and Anthony Rendon advancing swiftly through the minor leagues, the future was as bright as ever for the Washington Nationals. The 2012 season was certainly a success. For the first time in Washington Nationals history, the team finished with a winning record. In fact, they finished with the best record in the major leagues. Making the postseason for the first time in franchise history, they lost in 5 games in a back-and-forth nail-biter of a series to the St. Louis Cardinals. They might not have gotten as far into the postseason as they would have wanted, but it was a massive step forward as an organization. In 2013, the Nationals finished at a solid 86-76, yet they fell short of making the playoffs. Though this year was an important year for the organization. This year marked the debut of the aforementioned Anthony Rendon, and also marked the signing of 16-year-old international amateur free agent Victor Robles. More on him later. In 2014, they again finished with the best record in the National League, and once again were upset in the NLDS, this time in 4 games by the eventual World Series winning San Francisco Giants. The Nationals began a bit of a pattern of sorts, seemingly alternating between making and missing the playoffs in the next few seasons. In the offseason going into the 2015 season, the Nationals made 2 of the biggest moves in their franchise's young history. In December of 2014, the Nationals were part of a massive 3-team deal between them, the Rays, and the Padres. The Padres received Rookie of the Year winner Wil Myers from the Rays. They also received some prospects from the Rays that never really amounted to much for them. The Rays received a couple of prospects from the Padres and the Nationals. The prospects they received from the Padres never amounted to much, but one of the prospects they received from the Nationals, Steven Souza Jr., put together some decent seasons with the Rays. The crowning jewel of this trade, however, was what the Nationals received from the Padres. The Nationals received 2014 first-round pick Trea Turner. At the time of this trade, he was actually unable to be traded, as it hadn't been 1 year since he was drafted, so he was listed as a player to be named later that would complete this convoluted transaction when he was eligible to be traded in June of 2015. In January of 2015, they signed former Cy Young winner Max Scherzer to what was at the time the biggest contract in Nationals history, a 7-year, $210 million deal. 2015 was also the year that the Nationals signed another notable international amateur free agent. They signed another 16-year-old Dominican position player, this one by the name of Juan Soto. In 2015, they regressed to an 83-79 record and missed the playoffs. In 2016, they finished 95-67 and won their division, yet once again lost in 5 games in the NLDS to the Dodgers. Despite their continued playoff stagnation, the farm system was steadily improving. By the midseason point of 2016, MLB Pipeline ranked the Nationals farm system as the 6th best in all of baseball. They might not have had the depth of some other farm systems, but they possessed many players ranked in the top 100 list, such as Lucas Giolito, Eric Fetty, Reynaldo Lopez, Trea Turner, and 2013 international signing Victor Robles. Giolito and Lopez both got cups of coffee to end this season, and Trea Turner got an extended look in the major leagues this year, and he was phenomenal. Playing in roughly half the season, he slashed .342, .370, .567, which is good for an OPS plus of 142. If you're unversed with OPS plus, it's essentially a stat that normalizes OPS based on both the offensive environment of the league that season and on park factors. 100 is always average, higher is better, and lower is worse. So in 2016, Trea Turner was 42% better than the average hitter. He finished the year with 13 home runs and a profound 33 stolen bases in only 73 games. It was clear that the Nationals had a new electric piece to add to their core. Despite this, however, in 2017, stop me if you've heard this one before, the Nationals won the division and lost in 5 games in the NLDS in a nail-biter of a series to the Chicago Cubs. The 2018 season was a make-or-break year for the Nationals, as they clearly had the talent of a team that can make a deep postseason run, but many key pieces of their team were set to become free agents after this year, such as second baseman Daniel Murphy, starter Gio Gonzalez, and by far the biggest piece, 2015 MVP winner Bryce Harper. And the Nationals really showed that they were willing to do whatever it took to win. After utility man Howie Kendrick ruptured his Achilles on May 19th, the Nationals called up their number 2 prospect and number 56 overall prospect Juan Soto after just 8 games in Double-A. And you know what? It was shocking just how good he was. He produced a triple slash of .292, .406, .517, resulting in an OPS plus of 142. He hit 22 home runs and drove in 70 runs, but most importantly, he got on base more than 40% of the time. He was 4th in the majors in on-base percentage among players who had at least as many plate appearances as him. And he did all this as a 19-year-old. When I was 19, I was playing Pokemon Showdown in my English literature lecture. I still play Pokemon Showdown during my lectures. Paraflinch Togekiss, man. Shit is annoying. Anyway, the 2018 season was not kind to the Nationals. They did not meet expectations in this crucial year and finished 82-80, missing out on the playoffs. They waved the proverbial white flag in late August when they traded Daniel Murphy to the Cubs and Gio Gonzalez to the Brewers. Since they were out of the playoff picture, the Nationals called up their number one prospect, Victor Robles, to finish the last month of the season in the majors. He likely would have been there earlier were it not for an elbow injury that caused him to miss 3 months in the minor leagues. In the ensuing offseason, Bryce Harper signed a mega deal worth $330 million over 13 years to be a Philadelphia Philly for the rest of his career. Despite this massive loss, they still made meaningful additions going into the 2019 season. They traded for all-star catcher Yan Gomes from Cleveland and signed Kurt Suzuki to accompany him behind the dish. They signed Brian Dozier to be their second baseman with Daniel Murphy gone, but the biggest move was certainly signing all-star starting pitcher Patrick Corbin to a 6-year deal, forming a formidable three-headed beast in the rotation comprising of Strasburg, Scherzer, and Corbin. So despite losing one of the best players in the league, the Nationals still possessed a talented and promising young core with what should be one of the best rotations in baseball. Going into 2019, their ZiPS projections had them winning 93 games and winning the division. But those are just projections. Anyone can try and guess how many games a team could win. But how did the Nationals actually do on the field? Since integration, only 2 teams have started their season at a record of 19-31 or worse in their first 50 games and made the postseason. The first was the 1974 Pirates, who overcame an 18-32 start to their season to win the NL East. The second was the 2005 Astros, who also overcame an 18-32 record and managed to make the postseason by winning the NL wildcard. The 2019 Nationals started a disappointing 19-31 in their first 50 games. And that's because, well, they just played poor all-around baseball in this time frame. From the beginning of the season until May 23rd, the date of their 50th game, the Nationals ranked as only the 20th best offense in the majors according to WRC+. If you're not sure what WRC+ is, it's fundamentally the same concept as OPS+, except WRC+ is based on a player's WOBA, whereas OPS+ is based on a player's OPS. Typically, a player's OPS+ and WRC+ will be very close to one another in value. So through the first 50 games of the 2019 season, the Nationals' offense was 15% worse than the league average. Of the 9 players who had at least 90 plate appearances through May 23rd, only Anthony Rendon, Juan Soto, and Howie Kendrick were above league average. Now, a part of why their team's offensive production was lacking was certainly because Trey Turner missed about a month and a half due to breaking his finger on April 2nd after he was struck by a 92-mile-an-hour fastball while attempting to bunt. On the other side of the ball, their pitching wasn't doing too well either. Well, that's not entirely true. They had the 9th best starter ERA in baseball through May 23rd. But the bullpen? Yeah, not particularly ideal, that's for sure. If they wanted to meet their preseason projections, they would have to go 74-38 for the rest of the season. And guess what they did? From May 24th until the rest of the season, the Nationals had the 4th best offense in the majors. Their already great starting pitching got even better. And while their bullpen still remained one of the worst in the majors, it at least wasn't far and away the worst anymore. All of this resulted in the Nationals going 74-38 after starting an abysmal 19-31, finishing with a 93-69 record. They had to settle for a wildcard berth, however, as the Braves finished 97-65 and won the NL East for a second year in a row. But as we all know, once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Their first meeting in the playoffs was a winner-take-all game against the Milwaukee Brewers.
Better than 41,000 have been waiting all day for this moment. Postseason baseball in our nation's capital. Payoff pitch to the leadoff hitter. Missed. Blowing away. Josmani Grandal. To right and well hit. That ball is out of here. A first inning 2-run shot by Grandal. And they are stunned here in D.C. And this is Eric Thames, who launches to right center field, and the Brewers have a 3-0 lead. Here's the Nats leadoff hitter, Trey Turner.
Turner's had to do this just because of that injury. He's altered the way he holds the bat.
He says it's actually helped me in a way. He's got 5 home runs his last 10 games.
And that ball is gone. Trey Turner gets the Nationals on the board. Strasburg continuing to work up a sweat. He's gotten here for the 3rd time tonight. We're in the middle of a 5th.
In a thrilling game that included a 3-inning relief appearance by Stephen Strasburg, the Nationals enter the bottom of the 8th down 3-1 against Brewers lockdown closer, Josh Hader.
And Josh Hader trying to nail it down. 3-1. And there's strikeout number Hader to Taylor with a 3-2. And he hit it. And he got him. Second strikeout of the inning for Hader. Ryan Zimmerman, longest tenured member of this team.
The face of the franchise.
He has been the rock for his team, and here he has a chance in this moment right here to do something big.
Shattered his bat on the 2-1, and that blooper is going to fall. Runners will be at first and third. Nats down 2. Have 2 on for Anthony Rendon. Elevated the fastball. Rendon wasn't going to
Take your walk and set it up for your young superstar.
The bases are loaded full of Nats. These wild card games are always unpredictable. Some have really been wild. Base hits to right. That'll score 1. That'll score 2 as the ball gets away from Bishop and right. That's going to steal 3 runs. And the Washington Nationals have the lead. They got Soto hung up. They tag him out, but nobody in this joint cares. To center field. Robles back. Ballgame. And the Washington Nationals are LA bound.
After this instant classic of a game, the Nationals moved on to play the powerhouse Dodgers, who had the best record in the National League that year in the NLDS. Game 1 was a shutout by the Dodgers. Game 2 was a close game that featured Max Scherzer coming in for relief in the 8th. The Nationals won 4-2. Game 3 was a close game heading into the 6th, but a disastrous Patrick Corbin relief appearance allowed the Dodgers to win 10-4. Game 4 was won handily by the Nationals on the back of a stellar start by Max Scherzer. So, once again, the Nationals were in a winner-take-all playoff game. Stephen Strasburg on the bump for the Nationals, Walker Buehler for the Dodgers. It started out eerily similar to their wildcard game against the Brewers. A first-inning 2-run shot by Max Muncy put the Dodgers up 2-0, and then a solo shot by Kike Hernandez put them up 3-0 in the second. Stephen Strasburg would calm down and not give up a run for the rest of his outing. But Buehler was dealing for the Dodgers. He was at 82 pitches through 5 shutout innings before finally giving up his first run of the game on back-to-back hits to lead off the 6th. He quickly got out of that though, as he induced a double play and then struck out Ryan Zimmerman to end the inning, still preserving a 3-1 lead. Buehler came out to pitch the 7th, and he hit the leadoff batter Kurt Suzuki, prompting the Dodgers to start warming up their ace, Clayton Kershaw. Buehler retired the next 2 batters, but then walked Trey Turner. At 117 pitches, his night was over. And coming in from the bullpen stepped the ever-intimidating Clayton Kershaw. He promptly struck out Adam Eaton on 3 pitches to send the game to the bottom of the 7th. Now, Clayton Kershaw is a lot of things. He's a Gold Glove winner, a 10-time All-Star, a 3-time Cy Young Award winner, an MVP winner, and a future first ballot Hall of Famer. One thing he is not, however, is a particularly effective postseason pitcher. Entering this game, Kershaw has thrown 158 postseason innings. In those innings, he has an ERA of 4.33, a far cry from his 2.44 career regular season ERA up to that point. Maybe the Nationals had a bit of fury running through their veins seeing Kershaw on the mound. After all, the last time they faced Kershaw in the playoffs, he came into the game to get the final 2 outs of Game 5 in the 2016 NLDS against them. No doubt about it, the Nats wanted their revenge. And revenge is a dish best served abruptly.
Rendon in the air to left. Taylor goes back to the wall, and it's gone! Anthony Rendon, a leadoff homer in the 8th. And here's Juan Soto. In the air to deep right center field, and there she goes! We are tied! And here's Adam Eaton as we begin the 10th. And it sails outside the leadoff hitter. Here's Rendon. has doubled and homered in his last 2 at-bats. In the air to left field. Taylor goes back. It's off the wall. They will be at second and third.
Smart. You got to walk Soto right here. This is not the guy you can let beat you.
So a walk to Eaton. Ground rule double by Rendon. Intentional pass to Soto. And here's Kendrick. This is deep to center field. Bellinger's back. It's a grand slam. Howie Kendrick with a 10th inning grand slam to break it open. It is 7-3, the former Dodger. Behind second, and that is going to be caught by Michael A. Taylor. And the Washington Nationals have knocked out a heavyweight. In 10, they beat the Dodgers in Game 5.
For the first time since relocating to Washington, the Nationals would be moving on to the NLCS. And honestly, there isn't much to discuss in their meeting with the St. Louis Cardinals. The Nationals swept them in 4 games. It was a beatdown in every sense of the word. That meant in the 2019 World Series, the Washington Nationals would be pitted up against the Goliath Houston Astros. They were a team truly firing on all cylinders. They sported a team WRC plus of 124 and a team ERA plus of 127. ERA plus is essentially the same as OPS plus, but for pitchers. 100 means you have a league average ERA, the higher it is the better, and the lower it is the worse. It also accounts for park factors as well. Since the start of the divisional era in 1969, the 2019 Astros ranked as the 2nd best offense ever by WRC plus, and they ranked as the 20th best pitching staff ever by ERA plus. In this same time frame, the 2019 Astros were just one of 2 clubs to have a team WRC plus of 120 or higher and a team ERA plus of 120 or higher, alongside the 2020 Dodgers. In the very first inning of Game 1, the Astros jumped out to a 2-0 lead. Needless to say, the Nationals absolutely had their work cut out for them if they wanted to take home the first World Series title in franchise history, and they rose to the occasion. They clawed their way back to win Game 1, then took Game 2 to go up 2-0 in the series as they headed back home. But then they dropped all 3 of their home games to drop to a 3-2 deficit in the series. Heading back to Houston for a winner-go-home Game 6, Stephen Strasburg tossed 8 1/3 impeccable innings to force a winner-take-all Game 7. We know how this goes. The Nationals have been here before. They put on a show in the wildcard game. They put on a show in Game 5 of the NLDS. Would they put on a show here? Game 7 would be a clash of 2 future Hall of Fame starters, Max Scherzer and Zack Greinke. Prior to the Game 7 start, Max Scherzer was to the point about how he was mentally and physically prepared for whatever he had coming for him.
How long do you think you can go tomorrow?
Should be good.
Normal start?
It's Game 7. Let's go.
Zack Greinke was even more locked in and on edge in his interview.
Going into Game 7, winner take all here tomorrow night.
Yeah, gonna be a big game.
All right, let's do it. Welcome to the World Series. It's Game 7 tonight with the Washington Nationals and the Houston Astros. That's on the lead-off base hit by Juan Soto. How long is the lead? First. Yuli Gurriel first up. That's well hit and left. Back in the ball. He's gone. Gurriel and the Astros. First series with Correa. He's 0-2. Now the 2-2.
Much like Greg Maddox's abilities to throw the ball where he wants to, that's what Zack Greinke's done tonight. He just has been that good.
Only 1 hit tonight for the Nationals came by Soto leading off the second. That is a rocket to left, and the lead is cut in half. Rendon makes it 2-1. Series Soto takes a walk. And here comes A.J. Hinch. And this place will let Greinke know how much they appreciate what he did here tonight as he exits. Will Harris deals with Kendrick and fools him. Strike one. Into the corner. This ball is Howie Kendrick has made it 3-2. Start the eighth inning, and Patrick Corbin is back out there. And how about Patrick Corbin? 3 brilliant innings. No runs, 2 hits, 3 strikeouts. And Daniel Hudson takes over. And he helps sell out their bullpen. That's a mile high on the infield for Cabrera. Wow. A strikeout for the second out. The Nationals are 1 out away. Manager Dave Martinez, the field manager. Here they are, 1 strike away, 1 out away. 3-2. Here it is! The Washington Nationals are world champions for the first time in franchise history.
The Nationals had done it. They secured their first World Series title in their franchise's young history. How exactly did they manage to win it all this year? What did they do right? Well, naturally, they were above average hitters as a team and had above average pitching as a team. Their hitting was centralized among 3 hitters: Trey Turner, Juan Soto, and Anthony Rendon. All were noticeably above average hitters, and in Trey Turner's case, he also added value offensively by being a maniac on the base paths. Top prospect Victor Robles finally played his first full season in the big leagues. While he was a little bit underwhelming offensively, he was exceptional defensively in center field, and he was also very adept on the base paths himself. Being that he was only 22 years old this year, there was absolutely reason to believe that he could build off this already impressive rookie campaign. Utility infielder Howie Kendrick put together a career year in 2019, setting career highs in every part of his triple slash. While he wasn't an everyday player, he was assuredly a vital part of this team's offense. Another key part of the team's success was veteran infielder Asdrubal Cabrera. After getting released by the Rangers in early August, Cabrera signed with the Nationals and completely turned his season around. By September, he had established himself as the team's starting second baseman going into the playoffs. Additionally, the Nationals' offense was just better when it mattered the most. Their team OPS that year was .796, but when runners were in scoring position, their OPS increased by nearly 100 points. On the pitching side of things, the starting rotation was dominant, just as expected. The Nationals had the second lowest starting pitching ERA in the majors, and the 4th highest K/9 rate. While their bullpen was the second worst in the majors in ERA, the Nationals did a good job at mitigating that. They had the second most innings pitched thrown by starters among all teams that year, and their bullpen threw the lowest amount of innings among all teams. Their starters did a good job of pitching as deep into games as they could. The Nationals starters pitched 87 quality starts in 2019, second to only the Houston Astros. Of course, the 3-headed monster of Strasburg, Scherzer, and Corbin made up a majority of these starts, but I want to give Anibal Sanchez his flowers. He signed with the Nationals prior to the 2019 season for 2 years worth $19 million. He wasn't being paid the big bucks the aces Strasburg, Scherzer, and Corbin were, but he was just as important of a contributor. Anibal Sanchez made 30 starts this year and was 17% better than the average pitcher. 13 of the 87 quality starts tossed by Nationals pitchers belonged to him as well. At the conclusion of the 2019 season, the Nationals had a decision to make. 2 key pieces of this World Series run, Stephen Strasburg and Anthony Rendon, were both free agents, and ownership said that they would only be able to afford to sign one of them. So what do? Re-sign the MVP finalist and your best hitter last season, Anthony Rendon? Or do you re-sign Stephen Strasburg, the generational pitching talent who had signified the light at the end of the tunnel 10 years ago when you drafted him? In the end, the Nationals chose to re-sign Strasburg to a mammoth 7-year, $245 million deal. And Anthony Rendon signed an identical contract with the Los Angeles Angels to be their franchise third baseman. No one knew it at the time, but the Nationals were deluded into believing they had free choice. 2020, an infamous year for a majority of reasons, and obviously, the most infamous part of 2020 was Fernando Tatis Jr.'s grand slam in a 3-0 count while already up 7. That truly changed the world for everyone that year. Going into 2020, many of the Nationals prospects either graduated to major league status or were traded, and their farm system ranked as the second worst in MLB Pipeline's preseason rankings. Aside from 2 top 100 ranked prospects in their system, middle infielders Carter Kieboom and Luis Garcia Jr., there wasn't really much to write home about in regard to their player development. Of course, the Nationals maintained much of the impactful players that comprised their roster in the previous year. As such, they were expected to be contenders again this year, and obviously, the goal for the franchise was to win consecutive World Series, even in a wacky 60-game season. The Nationals didn't win the World Series this year. They didn't even make it to the World Series. In fact, they didn't even make the playoffs, in a year where their playoffs were expanded so that 16 out of the 30 teams made it. What went wrong? Well, let's start with what went right. The offense was generally still good, though a majority of the team's offense was concentrated within Trey Turner and Juan Soto. Sound familiar? The team's offense was mainly powered by Trey Turner, Juan Soto, and Anthony Rendon in 2019, but now, Anthony Rendon was gone, so a massive part of their offense was gone and was not replaced in the offseason leading into this season. So the third baseman for a majority of the Nationals season this year was top prospect Carter Kieboom, and it was a disaster of a season for him, to be frank. It wasn't just Kieboom though. If we look at the 7 batters who had the most plate appearances in their 2019 season, we can see that 5 of them were above average hitters. If we look at the 7 batters with the most plate appearances in 2020, only 3 of them were above average hitters. And it's not just that the 2019 team had more good hitters than the 2020 team. Look at the hitters who were below average in 2019. They were still capable of holding their own in the batter's box. In 2019, Victor Robles and Brian Dozier were only a little bit worse than league average. But in 2020? Yeah, these 4 are noticeably worse than league average. And that's the nature of a 60-game season. Maybe over a full 162-game season, their stats stabilize. But with only 60 games to work with, any prolonged slump could derail an entire team's season. Another thing about the 2019 Nationals is that they were extremely clutch. As I said before, they raised their OPS by nearly 100 points with runners in scoring position. The 2020 Nationals were generally clutch as well, but not to an insane degree like 2019. And I haven't even mentioned their pitching. In 2020, the wheels just absolutely fell off of the Nationals' pitching. The rotation went from being the crowning jewel of the team in 2019 to one of the worst in the league in 2020. Max Scherzer was still his usual self, leading the team with 12 starts and generally being effective in those starts, but outside of that, no one else was really a contributor. Former top prospect Eric Fedde was okay, but Patrick Corbin and Anibal Sanchez both regressed tremendously. But the biggest loss was Stephen Strasburg, who only threw 5 innings before his season was cut short with carpal tunnel surgery on his pitching wrist. Strasburg said that his whole hand would go numb after throwing a baseball, and once again, the bullpen was not particularly effective. All this is to say that the Nationals vastly underperformed their expectations in the pandemic-shortened 2020 season, finishing 26-34 and missing out on the playoffs, when more than half of the teams in the league made the playoffs. Was it just the byproduct of a lower sample size season? After all, the 2019 Nationals started out 27-33 over their first 60 games, almost identical to the 26-34 finish of this year. Only time could tell. The Nationals made some notable moves going into 2021 that could help them get back to their World Series caliber team that they were 2 years prior. They acquired all-star first baseman Josh Bell in a trade with the Pirates and signed slugging outfielder Kyle Schwarber to a 1-year prove-it deal to help reinforce a lineup that was already solid the year prior. On the pitching side of things, they didn't make a huge splash, but Joe Ross would be back this year after opting out of the pandemic-shortened 2020 season, and they signed veteran John Lester to a 1-year deal to shore up the rotation after they declined Anibal Sanchez's club option. Maybe they weren't expected to be a lock for the postseason anymore, but they added some solid pieces to an already talented core of Soto, Turner, and Scherzer, and Stephen Strasburg should be back to his normal self after a successful carpal tunnel surgery. To start off the 2021 season, they got off to the same slow start as the previous 2 years, going 26-34 in their first 60 games. Their hitting in these games was certainly bad, with their 2 big acquisitions, Josh Bell and Kyle Schwarber, being rather disappointing to start the year. And their pitching was around average. Stephen Strasburg made 2 starts in April before going on the IL, this time with shoulder inflammation. He missed a little over a month before returning on May 21st. During his 3rd start back from the IL on June 1st, Strasburg was pulled after 1 1/3 innings. He was placed on the IL once again with a neck strain. This was the last start that Strasburg would make this season. Anyway, the 2019 team started 27-33 in their first 60 games. It was a bit of a theme for the franchise at this point. They could turn it around, right? To their credit, they did, going 13-5 in their next 18 games, bringing their record on the season to 40-38 going into July. In this 13-5 stretch, Josh Bell started to get hot, and Kyle Schwarber, well, he was just incomprehensible. From June 13th to June 30th, Kyle Schwarber slashed .343, .416, .1015 for an OPS of .1431. In this 17-game span, he hit 15 home runs. You want to know all the players who have hit 15 home runs in a 17-game span since integration? It's Kyle Schwarber, Sammy Sosa, and Barry Bonds. Schwarber took home National League Player of the Month for this monstrous June. Going into July 2 games above 500, the Nationals finally got some momentum going. They opened July with a 4-game series against the Dodgers, and they got kicked in the teeth, getting swept relatively easily. To rub some salt in the wound, Kyle Schwarber went on the IL after straining his hamstring during the second game of this series. After taking 2 of the first 3 in a 4-game series with the Padres right after their Dodgers series, the Nationals lost 11 of their next 14 games. Now sitting at a disheartening record of 45-54, with a farm system that ranked as the worst in baseball going into this season, the Nationals threw in the towel and became sellers at that year's deadline. And when I say sellers, I mean it was an everything must go sale. Relievers Brad Hand and Daniel Hudson were traded to the Blue Jays and Padres respectively. The Blue Jays traded catching prospect Riley Adams, who has been up and down between the majors and the minors with the Nationals and is still in the organization today. The Padres gave up pitcher Mason Thompson, who has been, well, just another reliever in the Nats bullpen. Catcher Yan Gomes and utility man Josh Harrison were sent in a package deal to the Oakland A's. The most notable piece the Nationals got in return was Drew Millis, a speedy switch-hitting catcher who is still in the organization. All-star slugger Kyle Schwarber was traded to the Red Sox for pitching prospect Aldo Ramirez, who has struggled mightily with injuries, including Tommy John surgery, though he's still in the organization as well. While I was editing this, it turns out he became a free agent in November 2024, so he's not a member of the organization anymore. Veteran John Lester was shipped to the Cardinals in exchange for outfielder Lane Thomas. This trade was actually a significant win for the Nationals, as Thomas had a solid tenure with the team. Though all of these trades pale in comparison to the biggest trade, not just made by the Nationals this year, but maybe the biggest overall trade at the 2021 deadline. In a blockbuster trade, the Nationals sent Max Scherzer and Trey Turner to the Dodgers, and got a notable haul of 4 prospects in return. The 2 that actually amounted to something were starter Josiah Gray and catcher Keibert Ruiz. The rest of the year finished out about how you would expect. After the trade deadline, they went 17-42 to ultimately finish the year at 65-97. Based on their poor record and status as sellers at the 2021 deadline, it was clear that the days of competing for a championship were gone even quicker than they had arrived. It was rebuilding time for the franchise, and their replenishment of the farm system wasn't done yet. 2022 was a year of player development and young players taking steps forward for the Nationals. Another important task on the agenda was to make sure to sign Juan Soto to an extension. Despite a lousy overall team performance in 2021, Juan Soto had his best full season in his short career to that point, finishing runner-up in the National League MVP voting. He had a magnificent year, putting up nearly 1,000 OPS and walking way more than he struck out. This is a fantastic season. Who did he finish second to in MVP voting anyway? Oh yeah, Bryce Harper. Remember him? Anyway, the main goal for the Nationals was to lock up Soto to be the key piece to build around during this rebuild. On June 1st, General Manager Mike Rizzo made it clear that they had no intention of trading Soto. It seemed like the Nationals front office was adamant that Soto would be the heart of the team that they would try to build around. All they needed to do was extend him to show that they were committed to doing that. Easier said than done, of course. But on July 16th, the news broke. 15 years, $440 million. This is the contract extension that Juan Soto declined. It would have made him the highest paid player in baseball history at the time, exceeding Mike Trout's 12-year, $426.5 million contract. This left both sides frustrated. The Nationals front office began to think that if they couldn't get Soto to sign a contract of this size, it wouldn't be feasible to think that they would extend him at all. From Juan Soto's perspective, he stated that it was uncomfortable and painful that the terms of the extension were released to the public. There's also a lot of politics behind the scenes of this extension offer. Nationals owner Mark Lerner was actively trying to sell the team at the time, but eventually decided to keep the franchise. Though I won't discuss that because it would take up a lot more time. Regardless, it seemed like the club had a change of heart, and they were now at least willing to entertain offers for the 23-year-old superstar. But a player of Juan Soto's caliber, especially considering the fact that he would be under team control for the rest of the 2022 season, and 2 more seasons on top of that, would require a Herculean trade package to get done. It wasn't unreasonable to think that the Nationals would just hold on to Juan Soto at least until the 2022 season concluded. But on August 2nd, 2022,
top of the hour on MLB Central and MLB Network, and the last was a doozy. JP Morosi reporting that Juan Soto and Josh Bell are headed to the San Diego Padres.
In what was the biggest trade in maybe MLB history, Juan Soto was now a San Diego Padre. Also included in the deal was Nationals first baseman Josh Bell. And of course, it did take a Herculean prospect haul to get the deal done. The Padres gave up 4 top 100 prospects: Robert Hassell III, Mackenzie Gore, James Wood, and CJ Abrams. The Nationals also received Luke Voit, a veteran first baseman, and 18-year-old pitching prospect Harleen Susana, who could touch the triple digits with his fastball. Suffice to say, the farm system was unquestionably replenished. Going into the 2022 season, the Nationals ranked as the 23rd best farm system. After the midseason updated rankings that year, they were ranked as the 15th best farm system. I haven't said a word yet about how the 2022 Nationals performed on the field. And well, that's because it went about how you would have expected it. They finished 55 and 107, far and away in last place in their division. Patrick Corbin continued his downward spiral into mediocrity. Victor Robles' substantial offensive woes continued, though to his credit, he returned to Gold Glove level defense in center field this year at least. Former top prospect Eric Fetty never really showed that he can be an effective starter at the major league level. He walked too many batters and gave up too much hard contact during his 2022 campaign. And that was it for his Nationals tenure. He was non-tendered at the end of the year. But the most melancholy disappointment for the Nationals this year was Stephen Strasburg. As I mentioned previously, he missed the rest of the 2021 season after his June 1st start due to a neck strain. While rehabbing that injury, he faced many setbacks, and said that his neck was constantly aching or uncomfortable after throwing bullpens. It was announced on July 27, 2021, that Strasburg would undergo neurogenic thoracic outlet surgery to alleviate the nerve issue in his neck. Now, I don't know much about neurogenic thoracic outlet surgery, but apparently, blood vessels or nerves in between Strasburg's collarbone and his first rib were being compressed, which could have caused the pain in his neck. The surgery involved the removal of one of his ribs as well as 2 neck muscles. He spent the first couple of months from the 2022 season recovering from the surgery and making rehab starts in the minors. Eventually, over 1 year after his previous major league start, he made his season debut on Thursday, June 9th, 2022. It wasn't vintage Stephen Strasburg, but it was a massive step in the right direction that he was even able to pitch in the first place. It was too good to be true, however, as on Saturday, June 11th, after Strasburg finished a bullpen session, he said something didn't feel right. He was placed on the IL once again, this time with a stress reaction in his ribs related to his surgery. His lone start in 2022 was the final time Stephen Strasburg pitched in the major leagues. He tried to at least stay in shape for 2023 by working out, but even that caused pain and numbness. On April 6, 2024, he announced his retirement from professional baseball. Stephen Strasburg quite literally gave his body to the sport of baseball. The sport of baseball, unfortunately, never returned it to him. Going into 2023 with Juan Soto and the face of the franchise Stephen Strasburg gone, the Nationals still weren't looking to compete in the playoff picture. But they were now equipped with 4 top 100 prospects in their minor league system. Not to mention former top prospects Josiah Gray and Keibert Ruiz, who graduated out of prospect status. Rebuilds take time. After the Orioles made the playoffs in 2016, they went 6 seasons without making the playoffs. And during the first 5 of those 6 seasons, the team finished with a record below 500. Again, the Nationals' focus was on player development. And with CJ Abrams and Mackenzie Gore on the opening day roster, it was clear that the younger players were going to get extended looks in the majors. Lane Thomas had the best season of his young career up to that point, hitting 28 home runs and using his elite speed to steal 20 bases. And while he didn't stand out defensively, he had an absolute cannon of an arm if nothing else. Josiah Gray took a big step forward this year, pitching 159 innings with an ERA of 3.91, which was 9% better than the league average. He was the team's lone all-star representative. Keibert Ruiz was signed to a team-friendly 8-year, $50 million extension prior to this season, solidifying himself as the franchise catcher. He had a solid 2023 campaign, offensively at least. Defensively, he was nothing short of a disaster. He was awful at framing, couldn't throw out runners to save his life, and was horrendous at blocking. Anyway, the two biggest young talents on the team were the aforementioned CJ Abrams and Mackenzie Gore. They were decent this year, really nothing too special. CJ Abrams hit well considering the fact that he was a 22-year-old shortstop. Mackenzie Gore made 27 starts and was roughly league average at preventing earned runs. It seemed like a solid foundation to build for their first full big league seasons, and they certainly showed the tools that made them special as prospects. CJ Abrams stole 47 bases to only 4 caught stealings. He was overall one of the best base runners in the league in 2023 according to Fangraphs base running runs. Meanwhile, Mackenzie Gore's fastball sat at 95 miles an hour and could reach up to 99 miles an hour, and his slider ranked as his best pitch according to StatCast's run value. The Nationals finished 71 and 91 in 2023, a noticeable improvement from their 55 and 107 record in 2022. Also, they had the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 draft, and with that pick, they selected maybe the most sought-after position player of that draft class, LSU outfielder Dylan Cruz. Going into 2024, much of the philosophy would be the same. Try to have young major league players take steps forward, and maybe sign some veterans to trade away at the deadline. And while they finished with a carbon copy record of 71 and 91 from the previous year, this was perhaps the most exciting year in terms of starting to actually see these prospects blossom into contributors at the major league level. Former top prospect Luis Garcia Jr. finally put it all together and had himself an impressive 2024. It seems like he'll be manning second base in the immediate future for the Nats. Mackenzie Gore improved on his 2023 campaign. He pitched 166 1/3 innings and was above average by ERA+. He also struck out nearly 10 batters per 9 innings pitched. CJ Abrams showed massive signs of improvement as well, slashing .246, .314, .433 for an OPS plus of 110. This is a very remarkable season for a 23-year-old shortstop. Since integration, CJ Abrams is only the 13th shortstop to hit 20 home runs and steal 30 bases in a season. He was named an All-Star for the first time in his young career this season. Their number 2 prospect James Wood was called up and made his debut on July 1st. In 79 games, he slashed .264, .354, .427, producing a 122 OPS plus, and he stole 14 bases. Oh yeah, he was only 21 years old doing all this, by the way. Wood absolutely has the tools to be one of the elite power speed threats in the majors, not to mention his ability to draw walks as well. Even 2023 first-round pick Dylan Cruz was called up in late August for a cup of coffee. This season wasn't without its hiccups though. Josiah Gray only made 2 starts before having to undergo Tommy John surgery in July. He'll likely be out until late 2025 at the earliest. Keibert Ruiz's offense regressed considerably from his 2023 campaign, and his defense wasn't much better. Former top prospect Victor Robles got off to another awful start this year, and the Nationals decided they had seen enough. They released him on June 1st. Though to his credit, he signed with the Mariners soon after and finished the year fantastically with them. He played so well that he earned a 2-year contract extension with them through the 2026 season. In the final year of his contract, Patrick Corbin concluded another lousy year. To be fair, he was an effective Chad innings eater, and there's something inherently valuable in that. The Nats also added some prospects to an already solid farm system. At the deadline, they traded veteran outfielders Jesse Winker and Lane Thomas to the Mets and Guardians respectively, and traded relievers Hunter Harvey and Dylan Floro to the Royals and Diamondbacks respectively. The young core was finally starting to show for the Nationals. James Wood and Dylan Cruz will have expectations of being major contributors next year. Mackenzie Gore and Josiah Gray are shaping up to be 2 key pieces of the rotation. If Luis Garcia Jr. could continue to play like he did in 2024, he could form a formidable middle infield pairing with CJ Abrams. who could honestly improve even further into legitimate superstar status. Let's just hope he doesn't bet on himself too much. And I haven't even mentioned some of the other talented young players in the organization, such as DJ Hers, Travis Sakura, and Cade Cavalli. The painful rebuild that resulted in the departure of many fan-favorite icons seems to finally be nearing its end. And I think Nationals fans deserve that. When the Nationals won the World Series in 2019, most people thought they would be a playoff contender year in and year out for the immediate future. But was their fall from grace truly as discouraging as the jubilation of winning it all? I don't think so. And I honestly don't think Nationals fans feel that way either. Look at how the Nationals fans and announcers reacted to Patrick Corbin's final home start of his 6-year contract on September 26, 2024.
Well, and this is taking a minute, Davey, a sense of theater here. Patrick Corbin, last guy. It's been an honor to have you on our team.
This is a guy who was nothing short of atrocious in the last 5 years of his contract, pitching to an ERA of 5.62 in that time frame. But it didn't matter. What the Nationals accomplished in 2019 will never be undone, never be taken away from the team, from the fans. Time will always move on, and the 2019 Nationals season will only become more and more distant in the rearview mirror. But that doesn't change anything. In 2019, the Nationals climbed the mountain. They slayed the beast. They etched their names into the confines of baseball history. And that's more than some teams can say. The book on the history of the Washington Nationals isn't even close to over. I'd say that a new chapter is just about to start.